A land divided, the roots of conflict. The year is 1965. Two nations, born from the fires of partition, stand on the brink of war. India and Pakistan, forever linked by history and geography, are locked in a struggle for the future of Kashmir. This mountainous region, breathtakingly beautiful yet tragically divided, is the primary flashpoint in their volatile relationship. The seeds of this conflict were sown in 1947 with the hasty departure of the British Raj. As the British Empire crumbled, the Indian subcontinent was partitioned into two states, Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. Kashmir, with its predominantly Muslim population but ruled by a Hindu Maharaja, became a point of contention. The Maharaja's indecision over which nation to join sparked the First Kashmir War in 1947. This conflict ended in a stalemate, with Kashmir divided between India and Pakistan, but the underlying tensions remained unresolved, simmering beneath the surface. The War of 1965 was not merely a continuation of the first. It was a culmination of nearly 2 decades of mistrust, animosity, and unresolved grievances. The scars of partition ran deep, and the disputed territory of Kashmir served as a constant reminder of the unresolved issues between these newly independent nations. Both sides believed that Kashmir was rightfully theirs, and neither was willing to back down. In the years leading up to 1965, skirmishes along the line of control, the de facto border dividing Indian-administered Kashmir from Pakistan-administered Kashmir, became increasingly common. These border clashes, while limited in scope, served to escalate tensions and deepen the mistrust between the two countries. The stage was set for a conflict that would have far-reaching consequences for both nations and the wider region. By 1965, Pakistan's military leadership believed that India was vulnerable. They saw an opportunity to exploit what they perceived as India's weakness in Kashmir and potentially liberate the region from Indian control. This belief led to the formulation of Operation Gibraltar.
Launched in August 1965, Operation Gibraltar was a covert operation aimed at infiltrating Pakistani-trained guerrillas into Indian-administered Kashmir to incite an armed uprising against Indian rule. The Pakistani leadership hoped that the local population would rise up in support of the infiltrators, overwhelming the Indian security forces and paving the way for Pakistan to take control of the entire region.
However, Operation Gibraltar did not unfold as planned. The infiltrators, many of whom were not well versed in the local terrain or dialects, failed to garner the anticipated support from the Kashmiri population. Indian intelligence got wind of the operation early on, and the Indian army was able to contain the infiltration attempts. Instead of triggering a popular uprising, Operation Gibraltar backfired spectacularly. It served as a wake-up call for India, alerting them to Pakistan's intentions and galvanizing Indian public opinion against Pakistan. India's response was swift and decisive. The Indian army launched a counteroffensive, crossing the international border at Chamjorian on September 1, 1965, marking the official beginning of the 1965 Indo-Pakistani War. With India's counteroffensive, the conflict escalated rapidly from a covert operation to a full-blown war. Tanks clashed in the plains of Punjab, while fighter jets dueled in the skies above. Both sides committed significant military forces, and the fighting was fierce and brutal.
One of the largest tank battles since World War II raged in the Battle of Chawinda, as Pakistani and Indian armor clashed in a titanic struggle. Meanwhile, in the skies, daring dogfights between Indian Air Force hunters and Nats and Pakistan Air Force F-86 Sabres became the stuff of legend.
The war was fought on multiple fronts, with major battles taking place in the Rann of Kutch, Lahore, Sialkot, and Kashmir itself. Both sides employed a combination of conventional and guerrilla warfare tactics, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The fighting was marked by periods of intense combat, followed by lulls as both sides regrouped and prepared for the next round of fighting. As the war progressed, the human cost of the conflict mounted. Civilian casualties rose on both sides, and the war began to take a heavy toll on the economies of both nations.
International pressure to end the fighting began to grow, with world leaders recognizing the potential for the conflict to escalate further and draw in other regional powers.
By mid-September, after weeks of intense fighting, the war had reached a stalemate. Neither India nor Pakistan had achieved their military objectives, and both sides were feeling the strain of the prolonged conflict.
The international community, increasingly alarmed by the escalating violence, stepped up its efforts to bring the two sides to the negotiating table.
The United States, concerned about the potential for the conflict to destabilize the region and draw in the Soviet Union, played a key role in mediating a ceasefire.
The Soviet Union, which had close ties with India, also exerted its influence, urging both sides to end hostilities.
On September 22, 1965, under intense international pressure, India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire, bringing an end to the 1965 war. While the guns fell silent, the underlying issues that had sparked the conflict remained unresolved.
The ceasefire was just the first step in a long and arduous process of negotiations aimed at finding a lasting solution to the Kashmir dispute.
To this end, the leaders of India and Pakistan, Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and President Ayub Khan respectively, agreed to meet in Tashkent, Uzbekistan in January 1966. The Tashkent Declaration, signed on January 10, 1966, would become the cornerstone of the post-war agreement between the two nations.